Hello, my name is Dr. Ivy Brannon. I'm a naturopathic doctor here in New York City. And we've been definitely going through some really stressful, crazy times right now. And for many of us, we're feeling a lot more anxious and a lot more stressed. And unfortunately, it will affect some of us when it comes to our hair. We might be noticing a change in texture and hair loss. So first, I wanted to look at what does a normal hair cycle look like. So in the beginning, we have the anagen phase, which is also known as the growth phase. This phase can last anywhere from 2 to 6 years and basically determines our hair length. How long our hair rests in the anagen phase is actually genetically predetermined. And about 80 to 90% of our hair under normal circumstances are in this growth phase. Then anagen enters the catagen phase. And this is basically this transition phase where the blood supply slowly gets cut off from the hair and the hair stops growing. Our hair can be in this phase anywhere from 10 to 20 days, and at the end, we develop a club hair. And I'm not talking about like club hair, like going out clubbing, but it gets its name because at the end of it, you have like that white bulb. Well, it's that white bulb that gives it the name club hair. After catagen phase, we enter the telogen phase, and that's the final resting phase where basically the hair is no longer growing. This phase can last anywhere from 3 to 4 months, and about 10 to 14% of our hair are in this resting phase. This is where basically we start shedding hair, and yes, losing your hair is completely normal, and we lose about 100 hairs daily under normal circumstances. So that's what normal hair cycle, hair loss looks like. Now, why or what is exactly anxiety or stress-induced hair loss? Well, another name, or the medical term, is telogen effluvium, and it gets its name because basically our hair prematurely leaves the anagen phase, that growth phase, and goes into the telogen phase. So unlike the typical 10 to 14% of our hair in the telogen phase, about 30, sometimes even 70% of our hair is now in this telogen phase. Now, we don't normally even notice any hair loss until about 1 month to even 6 months after the initial stressful event. But once the hair loss starts, rather than losing 100 hairs a day, we might notice losing about almost 300 hairs a day. So why do we lose hair due to stress and anxiety? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Well, the first is during stress and anxiety, our body produces a lot of neurotransmitters and cytokines as a result of the stress, of the anxiety. And our body actually has receptors for these all over, and our hair is no exception. And so these neurotransmitters and cytokines actually have a direct influence on the hair cycle, basically again pushing the anagen phase more quickly into the telogen phase. Well, there's also another reason why stress can also cause the hair loss. Well, our bodies, when they're producing all these neurotransmitters and hormones, specifically cortisol coming from the adrenal glands, we utilize a lot of nutrients, specifically B vitamins, zinc, and vitamin C. Well, we also need these nutrients for hair growth. So it's not just the fact that it's pushing the cycle, but it's also robbing key nutrients for hair growth. There's also some indirect reasons why stress and anxiety can increase hair loss. Now, the first being, this is a little bit unrelated to anxiety-induced specific hair loss, but if you're someone who is susceptible to androgen alopecia, which is basically hair loss due to male hormones, stress and anxiety can actually make those conditions worse. And the reason being, and I actually have another video on this, is during times of stress and anxiety, our body also pumps out more adrenal androgens, and that's just going to be feeding more into that cycle. Another big component of hair loss due to stress and anxiety is when we're stressed, when we're anxious, our digestion unfortunately gets compromised. If you've ever heard of this idea of fight or flight and then rest and digest, so these are referring to the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. So when we're feeling calm, our digestion is optimal, but when we're stressed and anxious, our digestion slowly shuts down. And that's going to impact our ability to break down proteins, which again is really important for hair, and those key nutrients, things like B12, zinc, and iron. Then the other thing that also happens, unfortunately, when we're stressed, when we're anxious, we don't necessarily make the best food choices. And we have this tendency to reach towards the chips and the sugar. Some of us will also go to alcohol. All these are just going to make the problem worse. So one, if you are somebody who is susceptible to androgen-induced alopecia, basically hair loss again, which are patients typically with PCOS, or what we also call polycystic ovarian syndrome, every time we're digesting or eating refined carbohydrates and sugars, we're just going to be causing insulin spikes. Insulin spikes also can lead to an increase in androgen, so that's going to make hair loss worse for people, again, who are susceptible to androgens. But on the other side, even if you're not if you don't identify with that, having more refined carbohydrates and sugars also is going to have an impact on nutrients. So either way, it's just not a great idea for hair. So what are some things that we can be doing instead? And these are definitely strategies that you probably want to implement now, but also will be helpful in the future, so that if you do happen to lose some hair, we can hopefully get more new hair growth happening as soon as possible. So definitely want to stay calm. Want to definitely get really good stress management in place. So whether it's mindfulness-based activities, things like meditation, breath work. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm a big fan of breath work, and I've been having an 8 a.m. breathing circle every morning on Instagram, getting people together just to do some breath practice. Journaling can be great. Exercise, but again, with exercise, you want to be careful. Low impact, more mild type exercise is better for cortisol, versus high impact is, unfortunately, can increase cortisol. Chatting with a friend, doing anything that's going to help to, again, bring the body back to some sort of state of calm. Healthy diet. And I recommend doing this now, but I also recommend doing this in the future. Really good sources of protein, specifically if you are someone who does eat an animal-based diet, you want to make sure that you are getting a lot of meats, because we want to boost up iron. Iron's so important for hair. B vitamins. Sometimes this can be difficult if you are vegetarian, specifically when it comes to B12, but a great source is nutritional yeast. I recommend it very, very highly. It's a great source of B vitamins, but it's also a great source of chromium. And other two really key nutrients are zinc and vitamin C. Optimizing your digestion. So some of the ways that you can easily do that is, I love bitters, so having bitters with food, whether it's a tincture, they also have glycerites. You can make a bitter tea. Something really simple would be actually doing a really, really strong chamomile tea before meals. Another thing that can kickstart digestion that's really easy that you might have at home is apple cider vinegar. Again, having that before meals. And then my last favorite thing for hair is collagen peptides. And there's a ton of different brands. I personally use Vital Nutrients, but you don't have to use that brand. And you can find both bovine or cow-derived, but then there's also, if you don't eat land animals, they do have marine-based in most of the companies. And what's great about the collagen peptides is that they have the specific amino acids. So amino acids come from protein, the specific amino acids that are perfect for hair, and they're also super easy to use. It doesn't taste like anything. You really just put it in anything you want. So hopefully you found that helpful. Again, my name is Dr. Ivy Brandon. I'm a naturopathic doctor here in New York City, and just wishing you beautiful, lush hair, and hopefully that you can embrace and find some calm right now. See you next time.